Start recording. Okay, we should be live.
Hi.
Hello. Actually, let me double check I have enough space on my drive so it doesn't for the recording. Yeah, I got over 200 gigs, so that's good. I'm gonna post the announcements. Oh, we already have people. We're not ready. We're almost ready. Here's the announcement. And here's another announcement. If I can find it, where is it? Live streams, there we go. Live streams, I have it already prepared. There's a 9 Twitch, there we go. And I'm gonna post socials announcements. Post. And we're live. Okay. Gonna keep this open. Hello everyone, we already got people. Let me turn this off. Hello everyone. Let me adjust the camera too, so it's gonna... There we go. We got Grand OK, we got Chicken Focus, we got Ace on Twitch. Oh, Ace on Twitch has a different color now. Oh no, I'm concerned with this first two. We'll get to those later, but anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of Resonance. Hello, U1F98A? I'm sure I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Check it's a Unicode character.
Oh, interesting. It's not rendered? That's kind of interesting.
F198A.
I thought we just showed. Anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of Resonance. We're back in VR, unfortunately, from IRL. But we are here to answer any questions you might have, like, about Resonite, whether it's, like, technical ones, whether it's, like, about the platform philosophy, future, past, present, like, whatever you want to ask. Even if you have, like, any, like, personal questions, like, if you want to get us know more, feel free to ask. The only thing, make sure to put a question mark in the chat. That way it shows up on our list, and, like, we can go through the question. We also have a bunch of questions piled from the Discord, like in advanced questions, so we're gonna go through those first, and we're gonna go to Twitch. Also in Froox, get with Cyro. I think I covers everything. I haven't done this in a few weeks, and so I'm always like, how do I do this? So I should have probably made a camera anchor. Let me make a camera anchor. Put this here so the camera's not floating around. It seems a good angle. Ooh. Come on. There we go. So we are here in the Creator Jam New Year's world. It's very fitting. And also, yes, we're doing a little bit of in advanced questions. Navy 3000 was asking, why is Chiro... What? I cannot talk. You're Chiro now. Why is Cyro in the chair? Well, we told him to get in the chair, so he got into the chair.
Yeah, everybody always says to sit in the chairs, so, like, I'm sitting in the chair, like everyone asked me to, so...
Yeah. See, that's the power of VR. You can, like, literally sit in the chair. When people say, you can sit in the chair, like, what they mean is to say you sit on the chair, but in VR, we have the power to actually sit in the chair. So,
yeah.
The power of VR.
You're not even in VR.
It's the power of VR.
It's the power of VR.
This makes me think of, like, that, like, like, in Everything Everywhere All at Once, when they go, like, you say I can't be here, when you mean I shouldn't be here, because you see, I can be here. Anyway, we should get into the questions. Also, hello, Ashes Rising and Kundalaj and Baplar. Good people. So let's start with the questions coming from the Discord. The first one, I kind of wish I was actually more prepared for this one. Colin the Cat is asking... Actually, let me duplicate it because it's kind of hard to read this way. Oh my god, thank you. Oh, we have to do the... Yes, this is how you subscribe, Confetti. Thank you for your subscription. Actually, let me spawn another chat so we can be also confettied in case more of this happens. Like, hint, nudge, wink. I'm just gonna turn this off. You don't need pin messages for this one, and just shove this under the floor. There we go. So if anything happens, we'll be sprayed with confetti. But yes, Colin is asking, how are the real-time infinite FPS ray-traced New Year fireworks? They're actually pretty cool. We don't see... Oh my god. Thank you. Thank you, Kabior. Went to like a New Year's party with like a bunch of the community and people. We didn't see too much fireworks in person. There were like some people like shooting them out like in the around the area. I actually managed to get some really good photos where I was like trying to photo the fireworks like real quick because they were kind of happening in real time. The camera happened to focus on like 3 branches in front, and it actually looks super cool, but I still need to process those photos. Well, finish processing them because I kind of started, but I didn't finish them. And I wanted to show you, but I'll probably have to like bring it to the next Resonance, like finish those for that. So I can show you, but it was pretty neat, like hanging out with everyone. We also watched the Creator Jam, like New Year's, like put it like on the TV, so we're kind of like watching it, even though like we're not able to be there, like in VR directly. But we saw like people like hanging out in this world and talking about stuff and exploring. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
They're very loud. A couple of them
they're
went
loud.
off like in the neighborhood, like those
yeah.
concussion mortars. I think some people shot them a little too low, and it sounded like a fucking cannon outside the window.
Yeah, it was loud. But they were cool. I do wish I have processed the photos because I would like show you, but I don't have those processed yet. Ask me again for the next Resonance. Hopefully I'll have them processed by then. Let's see. Which order are these in? Is this the next one?
Top down left, right.
Okay. And it kind of doesn't matter that much anyways, but I'm gonna put this one here. This is a longer one. So for this one, Starla is asking, this is only tangentially related to Resonite, but what is your technique for capturing images for good gash and splats? I know you need to take a lot of images, a lot of angles, but what about the speed you move your camera while taking photos, or how much should I be moving around the subject? Or how close and far should I be from the subject? Also, would it be a good splat count to comparatively view gash and splat in VR in Resonite without taking performance too much for majority of users? So, for 3D scanning in general, you want, like, generally when taking like lots of photos, making sure the photos are good quality, you want to have also like a good coverage. So let me actually grab a brush so I can kind of sketch this a little bit. Brushes, where's brushes? Geometry line brushes. There we go. So say like you have like a subject, like, say like this is like, I don't know, I'm gonna make like a simple shape, but like say I'm scanning this thing and this is kind of, filled. You want to take like lots of photos, and imagine this is like a photo. You want like lots of parallax, but also you want each parallax to have like a lot of overlap, because like the cameras, they, you need like an area where it's like overlapping because it uses it to match those cameras to where they are. You also want to do like multiple angles, so sometimes we'll do like, angle like this, and do like, a bunch of them like this. We can also do this by doing like sort of like a semicircle around some areas. So you can do like, cameras that are like this. So, this kind of goes around here. But also another important part is like you have to consider the geometry of what you're scanning. Because whenever you take a photo, imagine like the camera casts light into the scene. So imagine like this is, casting light, and it sort of like illuminates the object. And only the illuminated parts, actually let me show it on this camera, it's gonna be easier. Imagine this casts a light, and this casts a light. So this is like the sort of light that is casting. Think about like where the shadow is, because like, this part is gonna be obscured. So like if I go from this camera here, this area here, that's in shadow, which means it's not seen by this camera. So the only surfaces that are actually seen are, here, here, and here. And for a scan to work, like, to give you good reconstruction, each piece of the surface needs to be seen at least from 2 cameras, from different angles and different positions. Because it needs to use that to sort of estimate the depth. So if I have this camera, this gives me another view, and then, the shadow is going to be like this. So it doesn't see these, but like it sees this part, and it sees this part, which helps. For this part, it helps correlate these 2 cameras, and it can reconstruct this part of the object, but this is only seen by this camera, because this camera doesn't see this part. Which means you need another camera that covers this part, so it can also reconstruct. So if you have, geometry like this, like you have more complex geometry, you might want to add more cameras from, different angles, so you get, like, full coverage. And this applies both for traditional photogrammetry, and it also applies for Gaussian splatting. Essentially, it needs to see every piece of the surface of the object that you want to reconstruct needs to be seen from at least 2 angles, ideally more. There's another aspect of Gaussian splats, though. So let me move this. I'm gonna remove these. There's one more aspect for like Gaussian splats that's different from photogrammetry. Gaussian splats in generally, they sort of like learn how they should look to match your source cameras. If you do 3D scanning, actually do this, like say like you're scanning this thing. If you're scanning with how does it work? If you're scanning photogrammetry, you can kinda... Actually, no, let me do something different. Let's make this simple. Let's say you're scanning this. With photogrammetry, you can, just take pictures from this side, and like, it sees these cameras will see the whole surface. You take picture here, and this sees, like you cover the entire surface. And photogrammetry, it actually reconstructs the surface. It will try to figure out, okay, this is how far it is based on multiple cameras. It figures out where this line is. With Gaussian splats, they actually work different. Like, Gaussian splats will learn how they should look so they match your cameras from where they see the image, like where they match the images. But everywhere you don't have data, they can do whatever. So if you do photogrammetry and you reconstruct this with photogrammetry, you probably, like, if it's good quality, you're gonna get nice, straight surface. And if you then look, this is not a camera, you look from this side, it'll still look kind of correct. Maybe the textures will be a little bit smudged, like maybe not, maybe like, you have good quality textures, but it'll look correct because you've reconstructed actual geometry. Gaussian splats, they don't actually reconstruct geometry. So if you reconstruct this as a Gaussian splat, it'll look correct from here, but if you look at it from here, it might just be like, garbage. And it oftentimes happens because like the Gaussian splats, like, they don't care how they look for like viewpoint angles that are not in your input data. So for Gaussian splats in particular, you have to make sure you capture it from all the different angles that you want the scan to be viewed from. And this can be like particularly tricky, like when you're doing, like, for example, like a street 3D scan. Because I've had like many scans where, like, I'm on the street, like, say like, I don't know, like there's a lamp, and people are like this. And then I will thank you, Amidev, for the subscription. And I'll be like, doing scanning, from the surface like this, and I cover like, go both ways, but then I process it, and then I go with camera and look straight down. This will look transparent. It'll look correct from the angles you normally view the street at, but you look at an angle that like you didn't capture, and suddenly the scan breaks apart. And actually, I have a 3D scan that shows this, like in a very stark way. Well, I have a video of one. Give me a second. I'm gonna spawn it out. So this, oops. Make sure this actually shows on the camera properly. Hold on. I'm gonna reset this. I wish I could just play this from the back. So this first scan, this is a oh, it's not playing. this is reconstructed with like, photogrammetry. And you see like it's just 3 cameras. The blue, let me actually move this back. But the blue like squares you see, that's the cameras. This is a scan from just 3 photos. And you see, like even if I look at it from the side, it still looks kind of correct. There's the shape. There's like a lot of missing because I didn't see parts of it, but like the shape is generally correct. And that's with photogrammetry. Then I reconstructed the same 3 photos. I reconstructed with Gaussian splats, and you can see with the default, like this, it's fine. But the moment you look away, it just breaks apart like completely. There's no actual geometry. The Gaussian splats have learned how they should look, so they match the input cameras. So if I look from like around angles where the cameras are from, it looks fine-ish. But the moment I go away from them, it just completely breaks apart. It is an extreme example, but like Gaussian splats will do this. So like you have to be very cautious about which angles you capture your thing from a good Gaussian splat. Like compared to photogrammetry, you might want to like add additional angles that you wouldn't do with photogrammetry. But in general, you want lots of parallax, you want lots of like overlap between them, but also you want your photos, like to the other part of the question, you want your photos to be sharp. And usually the way I approach this, because I'm taking lots of photos, is I will literally be like holding the camera and be like click, move, click, move, click, move, click, move, click, move, because you don't want to be moving the camera all the time, because then like you get like if you're taking pictures, you might get motion blur. And also depends on lighting. Like if it's daylight, you can set the shutter speed to be like super fast, so like like you can be like literally moving and you don't get motion blur. In that case, you can just keep moving without stopping. But if you have like lower light settings, you might want to like do the like click move, click move, click move, click move, click move, kind of like motion. It's also like one of the reasons people sometimes ask, can I use video for reconstruction? Which yes, you can, but I don't recommend it because you actually get worse results as like from the video, because like you have the video motion blur, we have the video compression, and the frames, like usually it's better to have the frames be higher resolution, where they have more detail in them for the software to use, and videos typically are lower resolution compared to photos, especially raw photos, and also like there's like way too many of them, so like it might also take longer to process, so like it kind of generally not a good idea. The photos are kind of like better. For how close and far furthest from the subject depends on the geometry. You do want to maintain the overlap. Sometimes like when I'm 3D scanning something, I will like if I want to get more detail somewhere, say like this is like this thing, and say there's like a statue or something, I will take a lot of more photos close around the statue, and then like fewer photos just for the general wrong way, for the general kind of area. So you want to take photos very closer, but like if you want more detail there, because you also get like texture from it. So like if you photograph something like from really far away, then like you're not gonna get as much detail and as much texture because this is gonna be smaller in your photos. So I think that kind of covers most of everything, except for the last part of the question. I'll get to that in a second, but yeah, like generally, for me, it's like like when I'm 3D scanning, it's kind of largely now intuition, because I've like done lots of scans, so I know like what works, what doesn't. Generally, I kind of follow these kinds of rules. If I want more detail, if I want like more kind of like reconstruction, I will take more photos around that area where I want more detail and where there's more geometric complexity to capture. For the other part of the question, what would be good splat count for comfortably view in Gaussian splat in VR? I would probably recommend like not more than 500,000 splats. Keep it like in the hundreds of thousands. Once you get like into like million or like 2 million, 3 million, it does get heavier. But also like it's not that simple. Like a huge factor with Gaussian splats is how big the splats are. And it kind of depends, what the construction you use and what subject you're capturing, because some splats, you will have a lot of huge splats that are like overlapping each other. And even if you have like fewer splats, like you can literally have like just 10,000 splats. And if you have like a lot of overlapping ones, that's gonna be slow because overdraw, like it's gonna kill that. So it's not as straightforward. Sometimes like you can also afford to have a lot more splats if the splats are smaller and they're not like overlapping as much. There's essentially two parts to 3D scanning. There's two parts to like rendering Gaussian splats, where part is like the actual processing of the individual splats, where it doesn't matter on their parameters and their size, where it has to like do sorting and computations, and that's where the splat count matters. And it kind of sort of rises sort of quadratically like the number of splats. So like if you go like 3 million, like that's gonna take a lot of performance for sorting, and the other part is the actual rendering. And these are kind of like semi-independent. So you can have like very few splats, but they're very big and overlapping, and it's gonna hurt on the overdraw. Or you can have like lots of splats, and it's gonna take a lot for sorting, but then it's like kind of quicker to render. Or you can have both, and it's gonna really hurt. So it kind of depends. Sometimes you might want to like clean those up. It also depends on the hardware, because it kind of splats are heavier to render than traditional scans. And they will also take a lot of VRM, although we have like Resonite will compress them in VRM to kind of keep like their footprint lower, but even then, like they're heavier than traditional geometry. So it's gonna depend on how much VRM somebody has and what kind of GPU they have. It can be pretty heavy on overdraw, and it can be heavy on compute. So I think it kind of hopefully answers this. Let's see. The next question we got is from Mintshock. Mintshock is asking, what mechanism is used to determine what should be drawn before or after something on canvas? I haven't been able to figure that out on my own. My theory is that adjacent elements are rendered from top to bottom, items in terms of order in inspector, so that lower slots render over higher ones. But I don't understand how rendering of parent and children is determined. You're kind of close. Like it depends on the sorting in the hierarchy. So on the children. So generally, if you have like hierarchy, let me just draw a quick one. So let's say this is hierarchy. Let's say this is the root, and then I got another one. So the way it's gonna like lay things out is essentially it goes literally like top to bottom. So it'll start here and it'll go here. And and like then it goes here and draws this, and then this will draw on top of this, and then it goes here, and all of this will draw on top of this, and then like whatever's here is gonna draw on top of this, and whatever's here is gonna draw on top of this. So it's kind of just going down the hierarchy. That's assuming you'd use the say material for those, like because it will try to like order them. But if you use material that kind of renders out of order, then like it'll kind of like take it sort of out of that order, which I generally don't recommend. Recommend using the UI materials so they can be like sorted properly. But generally, like it kind of goes like top to bottom. Next question we got is from computer user fake. They're a fake computer user. Have you considered making frequently asked for common issues and suggestions that have already been addressed? Every now and then I see someone mention topic already been addressed in a previous office hours talk. It could be useful to have a place to point for common issues suggestions. We do make clips from this. So on our YouTube channel, if you go to the Resonite YouTube channel, there's like a whole playlist of like resonance clips. That one has like a lot of commonly asked questions. We can clip this out, and usually we'll kind of direct people to those. It might be a good idea to like collect some of those, like into some document or somewhere. But like you can also just go there and search. Also feel free, like if you want to like put them on wiki, like I think some people have already done that like for some of the clips, like where you kind of transcribe some parts or include it. So yeah, it might depend like how many, like maybe collect some of the most common questions, but the YouTube like playlist is a good place to start, I feel. Could maybe like make like a something like on wiki if there's like really like common questions, and then like put like links to those clips there. Next question from Colin the Cat. When is phase 1 of rendering going to be finalized? So generally we don't do like when. It depends a lot on... Oh, I think the show is starting. Maybe. It depends when, like, we feel comfortable with it. Right now, like, we're kind of focusing on other things. Like, the idea of that was, just kind of open that up and be like, okay, like, we're gonna call, like a bunch of, like, feedback. We're gonna let, community kind of go through it, give it some time, then we're gonna look at it, iterate, and, like, once we feel comfortable, this is a good list, and we got, like, the feedback we would have gotten, we'll say, it's finalized, but right now I don't know when it's gonna happen. We're kind of focusing on other things still. So at some point, like, we're gonna loop back to it, like, we'll go through the feedback, evaluate then. Next question's from Ozzy. Ozzy's asking, there's a particular part of the upcoming sliding module I'm curious about, with the orientation for sliding particle being contracted facing away from the normal of the collider. It's sliding off in non-view modes. Say you have snowflake going on the surface, you'd expect it to face away from surface as it goes down. I know orient by velocity can sort of do this, but gravity will always cause particle to face weirdly through collider due to the velocity being down. So it kind of depends, like, what do you mean, like, facing? Like, what the module does. If you have, like, surface here, and we've got, like, a particle, and say the particle is going this way, and it collides, it's gonna make it face, like, kind of this way. And it'll keep that normal sort of, like, it'll keep the velocity sort of aligned so it doesn't face through the thing. So, like, if you use, like, align by velocity, you could, have it, if you want the particle, like, to be facing this way, so you configure it so, like, when the normal's this way, it's, like, it's facing this way. Which means when it's like this, it would be kind of, facing this way. And if it's like snowflake, like, it's probably going to be, like, going, it's going to be doing kind of mostly straight down, which means, like, it should kind of work out. But, generally, like the sliding, it doesn't affect the, like, it doesn't affect, like, the facing. It just affects the velocity, like, direction. So you can kind of, like, work with that. But if there's, like, some need for something more complex, we'd have to kind of, like, look at it more in detail and sort of evaluate what could be done potentially. But that's kind of like what it's gonna do out of the box. Next question is from Mintshock. Is there a technical reason for Resonite links to be exclusive to host, especially for stuff like Unity SDK when that's the thing at some point? So it kind of makes something a little bit easier because, like, one, it gives the host the control, like, is their session, so they kind of decide how things kind of work, but also, like, for host, we can assume, like, the permissions don't really change. Like, if you start Word and you have builder permissions, then, like, you have builder permissions throughout the entire session. We can potentially expand it to, like, users, but it just adds a little bit of additional kind of complexity for some things. And we probably want to, like, add, like, permissions where the host can determine that, because, like, the host might be like, well, I don't want people, like, to use, like, Resonite link in my session. So there's, like, both, like, technical, and there's also kind of, like, session kind of, like, moderation. Like, if the host doesn't want people to use it, then they should be able to say so. Next question. This one has multiple things, so this might be trickier to get. Let me put this here, I guess. Kessler is asking, hey Froox, got a few. One, hope you've been doing well and taking care of your mental. The question is a statement. Thank you. Oh, it is starting. I'm actually gonna lower that.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah, I thought this might happen. I lowered the... It's the New Year's thing. It's activating animation. If I couldn't stop it, I just lowered my multimedia, so, like, it's not, like, loud. Let me know if it's too loud on the stream, but it should be lowered. Anyway, yes, like, it's been kind of better. I've been, like, taking a bit, like, a break from things and doing some more, like, far things. So it's been kind of getting better. I'm playing, like, having fun, like, with some things like Resonite link and particle systems like sub-emitters and so on. Ooh, that's suddenly pretty now. 2 is material stacking still square will probably break with the new render stack, or has the prevalence of likelihood of how much still will probably break if it's left unhandled, push into we need to find long-term solution category, or is it like refactoring there is no viable overall solution? Reading the things to avoid, it wasn't clear if it was just because it was source planning thing or it was generally unaddressable. This kind of depends. This might be actually a good thing to bring into the discussion for the render requirements, because we might want to consider this. We might make it like a soft requirement, since we've been telling people, like, this is like not necessarily a thing that might be supported, but like there might be methods to like convert, like, the existing behavior. But what we would need to have done is document that behavior, so we kind of, like, properly understand, like, what does the material stacking actually do, and how can we emulate it through other means. Because if we can potentially convert the existing content into, like, some more primitives, like for this, for example, the question would be, in what ways does material stacking behave differently compared to just, stacking just the mesh renders? If you document that, and we can sort of isolate, like, this is the behavior of this, we can say, these behaviors will be supported, these behaviors will not be supported. So I would recommend, like, posting in the discussion channel and maybe seeing, like, can we get, some people to liquidate, because that could kind of help, with those considerations. For 3, depending on the answer above, with mesh stacking, would a wrapper mesh be more performant than duplicating mesh in any scenario? For example, skin mesh render with a ton of blend shapes, think body of an avatar. Potentially could be, like, that's the thing, like, with the material stacking, maybe, like, we can reuse, because, like, if it does transformations, oh my god, that's play. If it's, like, doing a lot of computations for the mesh, then, like, yes, it could, like, help to just reuse the data and render it again, which is another kind of consideration for that. Yeah, I would recommend, like, bringing it into the discussion so we can kind of, like, isolate. And once, the biggest part for me right now would be, like, just kind of understanding actually what are the differences of material stacking, but, like, just from not performance parts, but purely from, like, how does it look, how does it behave. What are the differences of, like, material stacking versus just, like, duplicating the mesh, ignoring, like, assuming, like, all the mesh, like, stuff is kind of the same properties, like, ignoring the performance impact. Because once we can understand that, we can kind of better, like, reason about how can we support this and how can we convert this and maybe keep it, like, performant. Next question is from Ozzy. Ozzy is asking, with Resonite link being way to expose manipulate data model externally, is there concern that future data model rework could change API, mess with our established libraries in the future? No, that's actually the big part of the data model. It creates an abstraction layer, and it kind of provides, like, certain guarantees, like, on how the data model operates. And the data model rework is meant to, like, change how it works internally, but not change, like, the sort of the guarantees the data model gives. So, and that includes, because Resonite link is built on those kind of interactions, that needs to be preserved. Because if we broke those behaviors of the data model, it would also break the content, because that also depends on it. Like, everything in Resonite kind of depends, on the sort of guarantees provided by the data model. So the rework will preserve those kind of behaviors, but kind of change how they work under the hood. Which is a bit, like, similar, how, like, when we rework other systems, like when we rework the particle system, completely changes how it works under the hood. Most things, just kind of, it gets converted, it works the same. And we've done it, like, for a number of other systems, so at least unless, like, something is like using some sort of implementation quirks, like ref hacking, for example, that's something, we don't guarantee that will be preserved with the rework. But for Resonite link specifically, we avoid, like, using anything that we know is hacky, which means, like, there's not really a risk it'll break, because it's using the behaviors that they're designed to be preserved long term. Next question's from Colin the Cat. Colin the Cat is asking, how are driven lists working in the data model, and what spatial variable collector is doing? It shows all failed items in the list is being driven. Does it mean their values are localized? How about RFIDs of those fields? Since amount of items in the list can vary between users, are those still synchronized? Do each user's fields in the list have distinct IDs, or are they somehow synchronized? Actually, I have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure they shouldn't get synchronized. If the list itself is driven, is not being synchronized. At least until it becomes undriven, at which point it does a full sync. But I would have to kind of actually check. But yeah, they should each have their own, the IDs are already sort of localized to the user, when you do allocation. So each user is gonna have unique IDs. So, but those items are not gonna exist for other users. So yeah, we'd have to kind of look at the details, but I think it's generally driving something avoids the synchronization. Next question's from Zenuru. Got a technical question for you. What led you to choose the CloudToy interprocess package over other cross-platform IPC libraries? I started using myself, but the lack of any async methods code almost make it feel inefficient to be constantly polling while through a loop. So there's two parts of it. One, you don't actually need to be constantly polling in a while through loop. That's it uses something called busy spinning. So that's the while through loop where it'll spin and check a few times, but if it doesn't get anything, then it actually waits on a semaphore. And the semaphore is using one that's global between different processes. So if it doesn't get anything for a few spins, it'll sleep for a bit, and then it'll wait on the semaphore. So when the other end, sends some data, it also triggers that semaphore, and it wakes that up, and that actually is what makes it efficient. And so I actually work on making this also work on Linux, across the Windows and Linux. I don't know if you do want to talk about that part a bit.
Yeah. So the way that you can so firstly, I do want to expand a little bit on the way that you can wait for a message on the other side. You can literally just shove the read message function, I forget what it's called, in its own thread, and Froox said, the semaphore will actually it'll actually halt the execution of the thread until it receives more data, so you don't have to do the busy spinning yourself. It already handles that super efficiently. In terms of getting it to work on Linux, that was definitely a little fun because I had to make a shim library to let the wine process actually call and get data from native POSIX semaphores, because wine has to implement a lot of these sync primitives itself, because Windows has very specific behavior that it needs to mimic for some of these primitives. But the semaphores, those work pretty much the same, honestly. And so just letting the wine process call into the native POSIX semaphores was a kind of sorry, I'm losing my thought here. It was definitely a little bit of an adventure, because trying to make a Windows process talk to a Linux process and actually see all of the stuff. The shared memory actually worked perfectly fine. It's just the semaphores that needed to work. And I think one of our community members, I can't remember your name, I'm very sorry, made a prototype Rust library for it that I referenced. Yeah, we have a very unique architecture now where we have shared memory and semaphore communication between two entirely different operating system architectures on the same machine, which is really cool to think about. I can't think of any other.
You have to use the wrapper yeah, very unique. I think you have to use the wine lab thing, where you can actually expose some Linux essentially Linux like kernel like resources like to the Windows applications.
Yeah. So like that was also fun because I had to write this as like a Wine like quote unquote native library, because Wine will implement some of the Windows libraries itself in POSIX code directly, rather than relying on the emulation. Or it's not an emulator. It's not an emulator. I'm sorry. It's not an emulator. Sorry, I
No,
almost called it an
you're gonna be
emulator.
expelled from the Linux community now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like it's very cursed to reference both the POSIX standard libraries and the Windows libraries in the same project and make like Windows function signatures with like Linux code inside. It's very scary, but it works, and it works perfectly.
Yeah, but in general, it's actually more efficient than you think. Like that's like the while true loop is only like, because the assumption is sometimes like the message will be being pushed fast, because waiting on a on like a semaphore, while it's efficient, it is not as efficient as not doing it in the first place, because it requires the transitional control from the program like back to the operating system thread, and then like it needs to wake it up, and that will consume like a fair amount of like CPU cycles. Not like a huge one, but like a lot if you do it a lot. So if there's like messages coming, that's why it does the busy spinning, because say like it takes like I don't know, say 10,000 CPU cycles, to transition from the program, like, and wait on the semaphore. It might spend like 1,000 cycles just kind of waiting, because if something comes within those 1,000 cycles, which can be very likely for like something that's like frequent communication, then it doesn't need to like you don't need to take the cost of the 10,000 cycles to like transition. But if nothing's coming in that time, then it just it frees the CPU resources. It may be wasted like 1,000 cycles, but that's not a huge deal. It waits on it, and then like it gets woken up. But if something comes within those 1,000 cycles, then like you saved like even more. And it's generally like philosophy behind like busy spinning. But in terms of like what led us to choosing this library, it seemed like a good fit. Like it was like it had the stuff we needed. It didn't have like a lot of bloat. We are kind of looking for shared memory. A lot of the IPC libraries actually didn't use shared memory. They were like using like pipes and other stuff, which we specifically didn't want to use. And it also like was open source. It was the like license that we can use. So there are a few things missing from the library that we needed, because we also needed sort of like raw access to the memory. So we modified the library to kind of expose those things. Because it has the queues, but also has like just general shared memory primitives, and we just made like some small modifications. So it was, it just seemed like the best kind of fit. Next question is from Goldie Raccoony. Let's see. Goldie Raccoon is asking, what is the technical reason why Perflux data relays, not impulse relays, incur performance penalty? I mean, the main reason is like it takes a little bit of extra implementation to make it not incur performance penalty, and that extra effort hasn't been put in yet. That's pretty much it. Like it's possible, like when it's like sort of building like the internal structures, where it's sort of like will consider sort of pass through and will sort of like try to eliminate it, but like it needs a bit of special code to be able to handle that and handle it in all scenarios that it can exist in, and that code hasn't been like implemented yet. That's pretty much it. And next question, well, the last question from Discord is also from Ozzy. Let's move this here. I'm gonna put this here. With Resonite saying that it will be used to help with future Unity SDK, will it officially be done by Erzo team members, or will that be more focused on being a community project? Second question that I'm spotting. I'll do the second question after. So, with the Unity SDK, it's gonna be an official project, but we're also gonna make it open source, the same way like Resonite Link is. So like all the code, it's gonna be built on top of Resonite, and all the code for the Unity SDK is also gonna be open. Our goal is essentially to sort of provide like the baseline, where this is like the Unity SDK. Here's a bunch of mechanisms to convert, and there's a mechanism to sync like and push stuff through Resolink. But it being open, it'll both allow community to like improve it, build upon it, and also add like additional converters. Because one of the things the Unity SDK will be doing is taking Unity components, like for example, Unity's mesh render and like its collider system and like particle system, and have some logic that converts it to the Resonite primitives or components. And that's gonna be like designed to be modular, where you can like literally write like this is how this is converted. There's a like we're probably gonna provide converters like for like a lot of common Unity components, but you might also want to convert components specific to your project, or maybe components specific to other SDKs if you have like content in those. And it being community based, it'll allow people to contribute more conversions and improve the conversions. Like like if there's for example some edge cases or situations that aren't being converted well, people will be able to like help us like improve this. Or maybe you can make a fork, make it work with like your particular project. Maybe you add a bunch of specific converters that are only like special to your project, so you'll be able to build upon it. So it's gonna be both, where we sort of want to provide the fundamentals, the foundation for it, but then also like allow everyone in the community to sort of like expand it, like use it for their own thing, like do pretty much like whatever we want with it. And if some contributions are like general that would benefit other users, we can like then merge those in. For the second question, what is the goal of the future Unity SDK? Is it aimed to be a way to develop things for Resonite inside of Unity Editor? Will there be limitations? So limitations are pretty much going to be like whatever tooling is there. With Resonite Link, you can access pretty much the entire not right now. There's some pieces missing, but it's designed so you can let you work with the data model. So anything you can build in Resonite, technically you can build through Resonite Link. The bigger question is going to be, how much tooling is implemented inside of Unity. So, for example, you could, with Resonite Link, with the Unity SDK, you could build protoflags by just, setting up the components and setting up the references, but you're not going to have Visual Editor. We're very unlikely to actually implement Visual Editor for protoflags for Unity, but it being open opens the door. If anybody in the community wants to do it, they'll be free to do so. So the limitations are going to be like, more along these lines, in how well the tooling is. It's also not going to do, when you're building stuff in Resonite, you get that sort of like immediate feedback, but for some things, you will need to, like, you will need to send it over to Resonite, just to like be able to see, like, it actually behave, because anything that exists on the Unity SDK side is not going to have, like, it's not going to be able to actually run the behaviors. Even something, say like a spinner component. You put a spinner, you could with with the Unity SDK, you could put a spinner component, but you won't be able to to kind of tweak it and see it actually spin, because it doesn't have any actual code for the behavior. It's sort of like just defining the structure. But again, if somebody wants to contribute and like add a little bit of code that lets you preview that, that's a possibility. It might might be complications where like it might not be fully in sync with how the component behaves on Resonite, where it's like actual because that depends a lot of data model stuff and other things, so that might make things a little bit more complicated. But in general, if people want to like use the Unity SDK to build stuff, they'll be able to. You can use it to build new projects. We generally would recommend people like to build stuff in Resonite. But we're not gonna like stop people from like using it if they really want to build things in Unity. This is a method to do it. And one thing I think that will actually also help is the way we plan to implement the Unity SDK is, and is one of the reasons why Resonite Link you can just enable it on in the Resonite session. Is that you enable Resonite Link, and then you build your stuff in Unity, you send it over to Resonite, and then you can literally have Resonite running and you can have Unity running side by side, and then you just send your stuff from Unity into Resonite, see what it does, how it behaves, and then modify it in Unity and sync it back into Resonite, and it's gonna update whatever thing is in there, whatever's already sent, because it's gonna remember stuff that's in there. So it's what's the word? That it's potential workflow that's opened up with this. But also like one of the main goals for the Unity SDK is also to ease sort of entry to Resonite for a lot of existing users. If they have like existing avatars, existing content for other platforms, this will make it easier to bring it over, to sort of give those users a head start. But hopefully, once people burn their content, they'll start also using the Resonite tools to, build upon that content, modify it, do more with it. And it's kind of one of the kind of motivating factors. But in general, the motivation is open up new workflows that were not possible before. The other motivation is making it open so people can expand and improve those workflows. We kind of give everyone in the community more power this way. And also it's sort of way for us doing more testing waters, making more sort of open source kind of projects for Resonite, because we want to do more of this and kind of seeing how this works, sort of testing the waters. This kind of gives us some valuable experience and feedback on how we approach things, and maybe open up more parts of the engine, for community contributions and expansions. So there's multiple sort of motivations and goals, and I feel like the Unity SDK and Resonite are good ones because they're very suited for this, and they're very, there's not too much risk of things, exploding. Because if we, for example, opened say some parts of the engine that are more sensitive to compatibility issues, we might have some contributions and people contribute something and suddenly lots of content breaks. With Resonite link, it's not modifying anything in how things work in Resonite. It's allowing it to send stuff over. So there's not risk of that happening, and it kind of makes it's a bit safer way to kind of see how this sort of works out. So that covers all of our questions from Discord. We should be able to start going through the Twitch ones. Let's see how many we actually have. Because we also want to showcase some of the stuff from social media. I still want to get the embeds so we can kind of do it more easily, but let's do a little bit of community showcase. So for those who don't know,
gonna work though?
It's Blue Sky, so it might work. Oh, I actually got one straight from one of our team. Rustybot got big screen and it got eye tracking. Let's see if this works. I guess that's the question. I know YouTube videos having issues, but I think Blue Sky should be fine. Maybe. Is it loading?
Yeah, it seems to be loaded for me.
Is it loaded for me? Or is it? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Maybe something's borked.
Does it use YouTube DLP? Because YouTube DLP can download Blue Sky and Twitter videos, so I wonder if maybe...
I mean, this worked before. We've already done this thing. So this is the tweet, Rusty got his eye tracking. But unfortunately the video's not loading for me. I don't know why. I know YouTube has been having some issues, but sometimes YouTube DLP has some problems. Yeah, if the video doesn't load, we might need to skip this for today and look into why Blue Sky is being painful. Which sucks because there's some good videos that I wanted to share. Yeah, this is not loading. Let me see if this one works. I'm gonna try one more. If this doesn't work, we'll defer this for next time, and hopefully we'll get the embeds too for that. Because I don't want to just be able to bring the Blue Sky link and have everything in one message, so it's kinda easy to share. Let's see if this loads. Nope, it's being uncomparative. Yeah, no dice.
Surprisingly, like these. Wait, is this actually? Yeah, surprisingly, these are loading for me.
Yeah. But
Interesting.
unfortunately, I'm the one streaming. Yeah, I'll have to look into this. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not being cooperative right now. First, we like we kind of want to do like more kind of community showcase where we like go through like some of the posts and showcase some cool stuff that people have been doing with Resonite. So we'll see. I have to poke around and see why it's not loading for me. And hopefully next week like it'll all be working so we can kind of showcase some of the cool community stuff. So
yeah.
With that, we're gonna start going through the Twitch questions, and we got a first one from Gran UK. Gran UK is asking, Schnoppenten? I don't even know how to pronounce this.
Schnoppent.
Is Schnoppenten like Taipongs?
Well, it's Schnoppent.
Or is Schnoppent? It's like what doesn't make us explode. I mean, like it's just the inverse. It's like stuff that just doesn't make us disintegrate.
Well, I don't want to talk about the good stuff and then the bad stuff. I want to talk about the bad stuff and then the good stuff. So leave it on a good note.
No, this is different. This is like what doesn't make you disintegrate. Like it doesn't necessarily make you integrate, but it just doesn't make you disintegrate.
I don't know.
Eating apples.
I don't know. Existing.
Like this is a good one. And then we got Taipongs from Ace on Twitch. What doesn't make us reintegrate, but also like it doesn't like necessarily I don't know breathing air. It's just there. It's a thing you just do.
These are very neutral. These literally have the same answer.
Yeah, this is like just neutral. It doesn't affect us in particular way. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I just work here. And I got a question. Ooh, I don't. So I kind of want to add like sort of locomotion log or something, so I don't keep like doing this. Check the Froox author is asking, why is JSON parsing in C# so weird? I'm kind of struggling to implement derived type decoding in Python. I think I have an approach that works now too. I don't know. I don't think it's weird. I'm not sure what's weird about it. Like I've not had an issue doing this in Lua or even the wacky like one of the wacky programming languages in Gmod like Expression 2. So like I'm not sure where you're getting hung up. It just like you get the message and you see its type and then you just handle it based on its type. I'm not sure why it's weird.
I think it's like the derived types, but like because like C# like it's kind of made like because C# is very strongly typed. So like the messages we use, like we actually specify these are the derived types, and then like when it parses it actually instantiates the right class, which means it needs to actually read it and then decide which one it does. And sort of the system, like system text JSON is like has this mechanism, but like I figured like Python would be easier because Python's a lot more kind of dynamically typed than strongly typed. So like I don't know. I don't work with Python much, so like it's hard for me like to say. But if there's like anything specific that could potentially help, like feel free to make issues. Resonite link is still like in beta state, which means like we're okay. Like if something seems generally good change that would kind of help the like implementation, we're still open to making it, even though like it will require everyone to kind of rework the integrations. I would recommend like maybe making an issue like now, because if you like wait too long and we kind of like move it from beta, then like we'll be like a lot less likely to actually make that change. But also, I don't know what changes we could make to like make it easier for Python.
Yeah, I'm not really. It would be good to see if this is like an issue like that is just exacerbated by Python not being well suited for it, or if it's just like something that like you're personally confused by. Because like I personally had no issues like interpreting like the messages. I mean, I just like I basically just handle the messages in my stuff based on what type they come in as, and that's pretty much it. Like, it doesn't seem weird to me.
It's kind of funny because I was kind of expecting more issues with like strongly typed languages, because then the JSON serialization needs to be able to like determine the type you get, during the parsing process. But like I figured like with like dynamic languages, you can just you get the data and then you're like, oh look, like, oh, this is this type, so you do stuff based on that. But yeah, like we would need like more kind of context for this. And also thank you again, Kobe, for a subscription. This question is chat. By the way, since there's a question in chat, like, we don't use Newton JSON for it. We use the system text JSON for our Resonite link.
Yeah, Newtonsoft is kind of crusty and loopy now.
So, Dionymus is asking, have you heard anything about the Steam Frame dev kit? No. Well, sort of, actually. Like, I got asked, but by Ian, like, who's one of the editors at Upload VR, if we got one, and like we said, like, no, and like he pinged one of the Valve people, so maybe we'll see if that does anything. We definitely love to like have one, at very least, to make sure things are compatible, because you probably need like to make some adjustments for the controllers and so on. We do want to like see how we can get it to run natively, because we have like native support for ARM for the headless, and we could have like interesting architecture where like the main processor runs natively as ARM, because the headless will run on the Raspberry Pi, thanks to like JForce work, and some people from the community too. And we want to see like can we get like the main engine running natively, and then like only have the render under like Fex and Proton. But we'll see. Grandy K is asking, have you seen Hytale and its almost in-game modding abilities? I actually haven't. I've heard like a little bit, but like I haven't heard much.
Have you seen much? Kind of neat. Raid was talking to me about it a little bit. It seems like Hytale kind of seems like if Minecraft was developed with like modders as like a first class, like heading the development. Like day one, it already had. Actually, was it day one? I don't know. Within the first like day or two of it releasing, it already had 240 mods for it.
That's quite a bit. I mean, it's actually like one of the things that inspired like Froox engine. Like I was like, because I really like Minecraft and like love like how many mods there are for Minecraft, and I was like, what if there was an engine you can sort of build within and have like a lot of control over it. So that's kind of interesting, but I don't know any specifics for Hytale, but it was definitely one of inspirations for Resonite itself. But also Resonite was like designed to be more general engine, or than like specific type of game. And from what I've seen like from Hytale, it's still kind of like voxel based kind of game.
The TLDR that I've been told occasionally is that like if you like Terraria and Minecraft, it's kind of almost like a fusion of the two.
Oh, interesting. Like gameplay wise, or
yeah, like it has some elements from Terraria where like you don't have a crafting grid, but instead it will use like the resources from the chests around you when you're crafting, and like without having to make a shape. So it like it has more like a Terraria-esque crafting system.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'm gonna play it sometime maybe. But we just
like $20.
We just got the vintage store and like haven't started it yet. I kind of wanted to play that one. So many games. Actually, I recently played through like Alan Wake 2, and it's made by like a Finnish studio by Remedy Games. And one thing I felt like funny in the game, because there's like so many Finnish references in that. There's like a poster in the game and it mentioned Gloggy, and I was like, is the thing. Gloggy. Makes sense.
Gloggy.
Next question's from Yame DevTool. What are some things you wish you would have known about conventions before attending one? So there's actually a thing like one of our people from our community told me at my first convention. When I attended one, like I didn't kind of know like what to do, and like pretty much like I remember the first time I was like attending a convention, I was kind of confused because it just felt like we're just kind of constantly moving from one place to another, just like visiting somebody in the room, and it felt like nothing's really happening. And I was kind of getting like a little bit like sad about it because it felt like the days are kind of ticking away and there's like not really much going on. And one of the people in the community, like Earthmark, like he actually told me like it's kind of similarish how his first convention was, that like he was kind of like not expecting to do, and he told me that like conventions are kind of like it's kind of like an RPG game, like it's kind of like more open ended, where you can you can have like, and it's kind of like conventions a lot about like would you make it yourself, and it's like you have like the sort of main quests, which are like some of the official stuff, like the opening ceremony, like the dealers, then like other kind of stuff, and those are kind of the main quests, and they have like side quests, which are like room parties, a lot of like side stuff, like happening in the convention space, and people like will take completely different approaches for different conventions. Like some people only do side quests, they will like go from room party to room party. Some people go to lots of panels, some people kind of mix those, and one thing, you won't be able to do all of them. There's just like too much stuff. You don't want to be too constrained, but also it's like, make it your own thing. Like some people, go and pester people from AV, and like, maybe the AV people will be like, they'll let you like, press the like funny buttons. And ever since then, like, I've kind of had like more of stuff like that kind of happening where I'm like, okay, like I want to do these things, and then some things kind of happen. And like, like, and you just kind of like, make it your own thing, and like, find like the quests you kind of want to do at a convention. But also important thing is like you won't be able to do everything. Like if you try to plan too much stuff, especially with furries, like planning is difficult. So like you do want to be like kind of flexible and not consider that everything will like happen that you want like to do at a convention. Sometimes literally like you can't because there will be like 2 panels scheduled at the same time that you want to attend. But yeah, it's kind of that kind of like mindset. Like the convention's kind of what you make it. It also depends like how many people you know there. Like usually I find like conventions are better the more people you'd have there. Like I went to some that are like smaller, just kind of like wanted to see others, but like then there was a lot of like I don't know what to do. Like nothing's happening. Nobody's around. Versus like when it's like a bigger convention, there's a lot of people then like it feels more like it's the opposite. It's like you're gonna hang out with these people, I'm gonna hang out with this person, but like or with this group, like or this group is doing a thing and this group wants to do a thing, so it kind of becomes like the opposite, where like there can be too much happening and like you won't be able to like do all of it, and then you kind of feel bad because you're like, I want to do this thing too, but this thing's happening. So yeah, it depends. It also depends, like, conventions are very different. Like there's different types of conventions. Yeah. I don't know, Sarah, do you wanna talk about your experience too on this one?
My first convention, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. I had never really gone out before that. That was like in 2021 or so, I think. Like for context, the last time I had really truly been like even out of state at that point, like not just to freaking like the state over, because I live in like the bottom left of my state, the bottom right or whatever. I was in Resonite, and my buddy Green came up to me and was like, "Hey Sarah, are you going to BLFC?" And I'm like, probably not." He's like, "You want help with that?" And a few months later, I suddenly find myself in the middle of an airport with an American Airlines ticket and all of my bags with me. And I'm like, huh? Where am I? Oh. And then I proceeded to have the best time of my life.
Yay.
It was very good. I mean, that goes without saying, of course. But I definitely didn't know what to expect. It opened my eyes and gave me a lot of ambition and like, this world thing actually is pretty cool when I'm hanging out with people I like in it, because I didn't really like going out much before. Had a great time, got used to being at the convention, and then when it ended, I I was a big old crybaby, and I ended up I like went to go like hug Veer at the end, and I just like sobbed into his shoulder because I had such a great time. So yeah, also taught me it's okay to cry in front of your friends.
Oh, and take sponge and wipe them out.
Yes.
So good. Another question is for you. Dionamus is asking, is that your confessor?
Yes, thank you for asking.
It supports your diaphragm.
Yes, listen, I'm very tired, so I gotta have some way to sit up.
Next question is from computer user. Nuki Raccoon said it's on the Discord, but a little too late. Got this resonance. I had Malta another day. It was obviously inappropriate. Obviously, it's part of a wider problem that I've been trying to be part of solution for. What can we do to help stop the spread of rumors about what is causing bugs? How can we help when people are complaining about things that either aren't happening or that aren't your fault at Discord? So there's like a few things. I feel like generally one thing that helps is like learning to direct people to primary sources. So like if there's like rumors, like, you know, oftentimes it can be like, you know, where's this information? Has like, you know, if people are saying like this and this thing, be like, okay, is there like a video clip of us, you know, saying this is a thing? Is there like a thing on the wiki? Is there like, you know, is there something solid we can point to that sort of, you know, backs that rumor? If there's not, oftentimes the good approach is, you know, bring it, you know, ask us. Bring it to like a resonance, you know, bring it to like office hours, like anyone on the team, so we can actually kind of, you know, talk about it. That's usually kind of, you know, the best way, sort of like, you know, directed energy into the proper channels. So for bugs, it can also, you know, depend, like because sometimes like it feels there's like so many like side channels and it's just stuff and there's like rumors and like things kind of like, you know, like spinning on those side channels, and it never touches any of the official channels. And just kind of like, you know, spins and snowballs and so on, and like, you know, sometimes we don't even like know that it's kind of happening, or we just kind of hear things, but we don't have anything solid. I feel like just in general, it's good to always, like, you know, you have like, whenever you hear something, have like some amount of like skepticism towards it. Be like, you know, like, what, you know, like, where's this information coming from? Like, you know, what is the background? Why are people like, you know, saying this? Is this actually the case? Because I feel like people don't do that enough. Where, like, you know, like me kind of coming, you know, like I have like both like some science background and like engineering background. Like, you know, I have to kind of do that a lot. Like, and every time I'm presented with information, like usually my first instinct is be like, is that correct? What is this based on? Like, worse information is there like backing it? And there's not necessarily being like, you know, not that information is wrong, but like it's more like, what is it like based on? Because like once I kind of understand what it's based on, then like, you know, I can better understand information and actually have some confidence. Yeah, this is actually happening. You know, this actually has, you know, some kind of effect. So that kind of thinking, I feel like encouraging people to do that and finding the proper channels, finding the proper sources. That's like the best way to kind of go about it. If people like, you know, experiencing bugs and they think, you know, maybe they know why a bug is happening, you know, post about it in the GitHub issue, maybe provide like information. Sometimes like, you know, we will talk, like, you know, look at it, and sometimes it is, you know, people will be like, this is happening because of this, and we'll be like, oh, okay, and then ends up being fixed. Or maybe people are, this happening because of this, and it will be like, no, this actually, the system doesn't, you know, touch this, you know, this doesn't affect this, and we can, you know, we can clear it up. But when it never touches the official channels, it kind of lets things, you know, snowball and morph. It's kind of like, you know, the what's the English word for it? The Game of Telephone or Chinese Whispers, or like where like it's a game like where you have like, you know, a bunch of people,
telephone.
And like one person, like, you know, you tell them something, and you can literally have like, you know, just like few people. The first person, you know, gets like some kind of sentence, and they tell the other person, you know, they just whisper it, and that person whispers to the next person, the next person. You think that, like, you know, you would get pretty much the same sentence at the end. Oftentimes you get something completely different because every time the person whispers it, they mutate it a little bit. And the mutations, they add up, very quickly. And you end up like with a completely different, unrelated, statement at the end. And that's specifically when it's a game where your goal is to just, pass the information to other person verbatim. And and when you're very aware this is what you're supposed to be doing, people still kind of, fail at that, because of our kind of cognitive biases. The thing is that this kind of game of telephone, this happens a lot. Because somebody says something, somebody like misunderstands it, and people aren't even trying to present information verbatim, the information, it mutates really fast. So to prevent it from happening, you want something to kind of ground it. And, the official channels, official sources, that's one of the best ways to kind of do that. So hopefully that kind of helps. Yame DevTools asking, what would need to be implemented for YouTube links to work again reliably? Will it be a high priority fix, or do we just have to live with it for a bit? Unfortunately, that's not on our end. That's we are using a utility called YouTube DLP, which essentially used to fetch YouTube data. And the problem is YouTube, they keep breaking things, kind of intentionally, because and it's sort of a space race where YouTube DLP, they have to, and they've been doing pretty much a really good job at it, but YouTube will keep breaking things, and then YouTube DLP has to find new ways to get around the limitations, and the changes they've made. So I don't think there's ever it's ever gonna be 100% reliable because of that. It's there's gonna be no phases where the YouTube videos are just kind of breaking until YouTube DLP finds a fix for it. We do have a now feature where YouTube DLP will update itself automatically. So once they fix it on their end, which depending on what YouTube did, they it can take them some time. You'll probably be unreliable, and then might be reliable again, and then YouTube will change something and be unreliable again. So it's kind of this kind of cycle. If you really want to if you really want to kind of contribute, you can look into contributing to the YouTube DLP project, help them, with the work they're doing. There's some things we could potentially do, we're kind of considering it could help things a bit, because we could, for example, make YouTube DLP download a video and then sync it to other users within the session. So if it works for one user, then they can send the data to other users, and that can help get around things, but there's side effects to that. So it is unfortunately kind of tricky issue, and there's not a perfect fix for it. I would actually say if you really wanted this to be reliable, it will require everyone to switching to some kind of open platform in place of YouTube, but good luck getting all the creators moving away from YouTube. So it's what it is. Dynamos is asking, were there any thoughts about ordering other jobs? I'm on very slow connection. I'm frequently falling through walls before colliders load. Yes, the system actually has some prioritization, but there's not a mechanism in the world to say, okay, load this asset, first before this one. However, there is a solution where you can configure the world and be don't initialize locomotion until this collider is loaded. A lot of people don't set it up, which means fall through the world. I would generally recommend for people to set it up to avoid those kind of situations. We do want to eventually add more systems where I can say these meshes, these assets are high priority, download and load these first. Right now, those mechanisms don't exist.
You can also use a primitive collider under spawn to stop people from falling through the world. And I would actually recommend people to do proper collider passes on their world rather than just leave everything as mesh colliders.
Yeah.
Because while it does work, it is inefficient and leads to the problems of people needing to actually load them. Whereas with primitive colliders, if you compose your stuff out of prims, then that doesn't have to be downloaded because it's just primitive colliders and they'll load instantly.
Yeah. Here's another thing is like it is a little more work, but like generally like using proper collider paths is like gonna lead to much better results. Also, no, we've got the U1 F98A is asking type within the I don't know.
I don't know, man.
That's
I want to go back to the regular ones, please.
It's too many negatives.
That's just a reply to chat.
There's a reply.
I don't think that's.
Asking.
I don't think that's actually a question. I think that's just them talking in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's skip that. I was also kind of getting into personal kind of things, so. Okay, so there's actually a lot of questions we have from Twitch right now. Let's see how much time we have. We still have 40 minutes left. I think it's 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So we should. I mean, feel free to ask like more questions, but there's like one thing I kind of wanted to talk about, like that's I just found like interesting. I kind of started like talking about this like on Blue Sky, and it kind of started an interesting thread. So for chat, like feel free to ask more questions. We got like 40 minutes, so like we still got like time. But one thing that I found like interesting is there was like the news like where Meta currently closed, the Horizon like workspace thingy. And I just like saw it, and like every time I see like news like that, because it's not the first time. There's like been a number of like social VR platforms and like VR things, and oftentimes it's companies that like they get like dozens or hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. In Meta probably billions. So like they kind of have like so many resources, and it's so weird because like I remember years and years ago, like I would see that, and I would have some people tell me, like, be like, like, well, whatever you're building is just gonna be irrelevant. They're gonna make it irrelevant, like you might as well kind of give up now, because like you're not gonna be able to compete with like company that has like thousands of people working on these projects and there's like billions of funding that's just gonna completely destroy whatever you're making. And it kind of felt like scary because it's like it's like you're really like how are you going to compete like with thousands of developers? How are you going to compete with like billions of dollars of funding, or even dozens of millions of dollars of funding? And then like you see those news, and then like you see like they try for a bit, and then like a few years later like they close the projects. And it's it's so weird, like being like where we like still like small, like we're largely community funded, and we just kind of keep going. And there's like many times like where it's like things are very very hard, and like things are like like you feel like if there's like many times like where if like this was like a normal job, like I feel like we're like quit many times over, but because this is like a passion project, it's something that's important to us, we kind of keep going, we kind of push through. But those kind of big companies, like it's all about numbers for them, and they just kind of kill the project. And it's always like so interesting to see because it shows that like it doesn't like having the like having like a huge amount of like monetary resources doesn't matter as much as you would think. Like obviously it kind of matters in some ways. Like we still like even ourselves we need funding, and we kind of like we need more funding than we have right now. But even like with what we have, like we keep going, we keep kind of pushing through. Where I just have kind of given up, and it always kind of gives me like a bit more kind of hope that like us kind of being sort of the underdog, kind of theme, like we keep going like while such big projects fail. And it kind of started like interesting like discussion like on like socials too, and I don't know, it's an interesting feeling.
Yeah.
But it's also like in big part like thanks to you in the community because you help you help us kind of keep going, and that's like like, and I feel there's like one thing like we have that like those projects don't have is like they try to like sometimes they'll try to like force things like really hard like and just like it doesn't work like the stuff like you have to build like it has to be genuine. And it's good to know like that matters like the genuinity of it.
Yeah.
And it can matter a lot more than just throwing like millions at something or even billions in case of meta. Anyway, we got some more questions. Unless you want to talk about this more.
I'm thinking we can. I mean, we also do have 30 minutes left as well, so.
Yeah, we got time.
I mean, I could do more questions, just like knock out these few.
Okay. So, Ace on Twitch is asking, how about a normal Schnuppet and Typongs? I actually might have some. Actually, I do have like, I think I have a Schnuppet like which is sort of like related to somewhat we talked earlier. It kind of goes like with. Actually, no, hold on. Let me see what I've done document. So do I have a. Yeah, actually, I do have like one that's sort of related to like what I talked about like earlier. And it kind of goes like from the kind of sort of initial kind of skeptical kind of mindset is like where sometimes it kind of feels like, at least for me, is like where asking a lot of questions is kind of looked down upon. Like people kind of like like you're like, oh, we're asking so many questions and so on. But like usually my instinct is like if I don't understand something, I will just keep asking questions until I do. And sometimes it gets difficult because like like I'm just kind of not finding the understanding I want. And it kind of gets frustrating because I just keep asking questions like and it just kind of keeps going like and like I'm just and I'm like but for me I find like some people like they will like at some like they will like just like somebody say something or ask something and I just kind of like be like kind of like nod along and like and like it might be based on like their misunderstanding, and sometimes it takes a bit to find they actually didn't quite understand like what you meant or what you wanted them to do. But it's just kind of nod like finish this conversation, feels like quick, like you feel like you're in agreement. But for me like if I like I will generally like not do that. Like I will like if I feel like I don't understand something, I'll try like my hardest to like really get down to like and really like understand and get it. And sometimes it happens like in threads like where it's like it's like it just kind of makes a very long discussion and like it feels like like more like you're being combative, but like even though like the goal is to like to actually get that understanding, have it click in my head when it's not clicking. And I wish like it wasn't like I wish it wasn't as much of a thing like where it's like a thing where like it even happens like for example in like when you're in school, and sometimes like when the teachers like ask is there any questions, a lot of students will not want to ask any questions even though like they probably need to. There's like stuff they don't understand because there's, and I kind of remember this myself from school like where it's like if you ask a question like you're showing other people you don't understand something, and that's bad, but it's, I wish it wasn't bad, like the way it is, where if you ask questions, it is a good thing because you're trying to understand the thing more. And you showing that you don't understand something, that's not a bad thing, because not like, yes, you're showing like you don't understand something, but like other people probably also don't understand like, you know, parts about it, but you're showing willingness to understand it more, to like, you know, to learn. I know like there's many times like when I was like in school where I wish like I was very anxious and I would oftentimes not understand, you know, something because of this sort of like, you know, feel this kind of like, you know, embarrassment like from asking the question. I wish that wasn't really much of a thing, and it was kind of more normalized that like it's okay to ask, you know, those questions. It's a like good thing to do. And then some people like, you know, like I kind of my later in life, like, you know, they kind of had like, you know, this kind of mindset. It's like, you know, it's like it is important, like, you know, like there'll be a lot of things you don't understand, and the only thing you get better at understanding them is by asking questions, you know, by sort of like learning. And that's kind of like, you know, how I kind of got more comfortable with it myself. But it's still like there's like places where I feel like, you know, it's like it's kind of sort of looked down upon, like you know, like where and people will just don't want to ask things. And I just wish like there was like, you know, less of that. I'm kind of rambling about this one. Do you have a schnapp?
Yeah. Yes. If you see me in a world, guys, please ask before petting me, because I keep having people who come up and they pet me and they keep not asking, and it really makes me uncomfortable because you wouldn't go up to someone in real life and pet them. So I'm asking very kindly to please ask me, and if you ask me, I will more than likely say yes. But it's really starting to grate on me, so pretty please, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good etiquette. I mean, it doesn't even have to be like, you know, like if like I feel like it's a very kind of quick question. Like some people are like, you know, they can literally be like, "Can I pet?"
Yeah.
And sometimes like I feel like you can even like be like, you know, you don't even have to be like verbal about it. You can be like, hmm? And sometimes the people will be like, yeah, or they'll be like, no.
Yep.
But it's a good thing. Like, oh, it's bright. See what happen when you don't ask. Explode.
Like,
You make him
like
explode.
yes, like yes, it is, you know, technically like we're in a game. You know, like all the argument is like, oh, you can just take the headset off, or you can just not look at the computer screen. But like, if I take the headset off, I'm not in VR anymore.
Yeah.
And so like, you're basically saying, don't play the game. You know, like I want to play the game, but I also want to be comfortable while, you know, hanging out with my friends. So, whether you're my friend or not, pretty please just ask. That's all I'm asking.
There's also a thing is like, you know, if somebody wants to like pet somebody in VR, usually it's because you want to like, you know, it feels nice, and you want to make the person feels nice, and like it's good to like just get like, you know, quick confirmation that both make them feel nice. And sometimes like, you know, it depends on that context. Like if you don't ask, like, you know, it's gonna make them feel bad, and why do you want to feel somebody bad?
Yep. Yeah, that's my shop it.
I do have a typongs that's sort of related to what I was like saying. It's sort of related, like where it like, you know, goes where I really like, you know, environments and places and spaces where it is kind of, you know, encouraged to ask questions. It's considered like a good thing, and also like ones where it's okay, you know, like you know, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. And like the focus isn't, you know, on the thing like you made a mistake. The focus is on what you learn from it and how you fix it and how you improve. And there's actually been like, you know, one of the people I know, like, known for a while, his name is like Peter Khan. He goes by Peg. You can sometimes like see him here as like a university teacher, and he did this like whole lecture where like, you know, it is important to make mistakes because mistakes is kind of how you learn, and it kind of comes down to like, you know, where like mistakes are kind of looked down upon. Like, you know, like there's so many spaces and areas like where it's like, you know, you cannot make even a single mistake. You know, like the more you make mistakes, like if things are bad. But like they're like a natural part of the learning process. And of course it depends, you know, it depends on depends on the situation. Like there's places where you really want to minimize the mistakes, but if you're learning, or trying something new, mistakes will be a natural part of the process, and it's okay, as long as you're learning from them. So there are like those kind of places where it's because it feels kind of constructive. It's like it's not necessarily like a bad thing. Like something happens, and it's more like what can we learn from this? How do we make sure this mistake isn't happening again? Because mistakes, they do get bad like the moment you don't learn from them. You keep making the same one like over and over again. And sometimes it also can be like like you want to make mistakes, like say you're working on something that does involve safety, say like flying, you're learning to be a pilot. Obviously you don't want to be making mistakes when you're flying a bunch of people in commercial airplane, but that's why like you train. And when you train, usually be like something in simulator, and you will be making mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes as part of the process, because that's kind of how you learn. Like, don't do this, don't do that, like if you do this happens, and it gets you better understanding. So there's like a way to structure things where the learning process, like you will make mistakes, and then like you learn from them, and then when you actually do things where like it kind of matters, it's like because you've learned from them and you have that understanding, you don't make those mistakes anymore. And of course it depends, sometimes you'll make mistakes that will affect some things negatively, and the question is like could it have been prevented? Like what's the impact of that mistake? In some cases, the mistake can lead like to things that don't really have that much of a consequence, or the consequence is low, which is like, the main thing is, learn from it. But in general, just kind of like, or like enjoy like, spaces where it's like, no, this is like, and just the mind, like, whenever people like in the mindsets is like, okay, like, let's not dwell like on like, just kind of this, let's not dwell like, on like, this kind of being like, this mistake kind of being made, but more focus on like, where do we go from here? Like, how do we fix this? What do you learn from it? Is my 5 points. Do you have one too?
Let me think. That's not a good sign. I can't think of anything good.
Why? It's not good and it's bad.
I can only think of the bad things. Help.
What? Get more typos.
Well,
just cheat and be like when people ask before they pet you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that could be a valid one. I don't know, Resonite link, that's my typox. It's cool.
Yeah.
It lets me put stuff in the game really easy.
I was actually gonna ask a chat, I think, but let's go through these questions. Oh, we've actually got a few. Let's go through the questions first. This one. Alex 2P is asking, paws, muzzles, claws, or tails? Yes.
All of the above.
Kyle Wolves is asking, a thought popped in. I remember hearing at one point that relays in Perfect do cross-performance hit. Is this true? Was this true and no longer is? I don't actually remember if that was like...
We answered this earlier.
No, it was on the data. They specifically asked about like not the impulse ones.
Oh.
Actually, yeah, no, wait. They're not specifying. Yeah, some of them, I don't know. I think the impulse ones got optimized away, but the data ones haven't. I forget.
Yes,
I don't remember.
So it is, the impulse ones do get stitched out.
Okay.
So those ones are actually removed from the execution.
Yeah.
But the relays that carry references and values around, those do have an impact, albeit it's very small. But if you notice like a really, really tight loop that you're doing is running a little slow, try removing some relays from it.
Yeah. And I remember we eventually want to implement like optimization for this, but right now that's not a thing. Jada Fox Author is asking, in the Resonite Link C# reference implementation, is it correct that slot and component both are defined as derivatives of worker despite both being workers, or is that an oversight? No, that's intentional. The Resonite Link, it's sort of like it doesn't 1% copy the exact hierarchy, because there's not really any types of workers that you can currently access to Resonite Link. There's also not necessarily stuff that needs to be shared between those. We might maybe change that if it ends up being shared, but it's not the goal isn't to mimic all the internals of Froox engine, but sort of more in how you sort of interact with it. But yeah, right now the fact that they're separate is intentional, just to kind of not complicate things. Next question is from computer user. With the plan for multiprocess architecture, would that mean more systems in-game would act like how current Froox engine system works? If that is the case, what would mean each system would effectively have its own garbage collector? Sorry if I'm asking this way too soon. No, that's fine. So yeah, if we separate each world into its own process, then yes, each world is gonna have its own garbage collector, its own memory space. That might help some of the performance across the worlds. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. If it runs its own process, then each process has its own children time and it has its own garbage collector. Yeah, that's kind of it.
I figured we were already on the multi-process architecture as it was.
Well, they ask
I had understood it.
Oh, well, we do have the multiprocess architecture between the render and the main process, but we also want to, in the future, we want to split the main process, so each world you run, because it's on process as well. So it's there's further levels of isolation. And we can also, then, for example, sandbox individual worlds, and even, for example, if a world crashes, it doesn't crash the entire engine, even if it's, hard crash.
Okay.
So all the questions we got, we still got about 18 minutes? Is it 18 minutes left? So I actually have a question for Chad as well. Since we released Resonite Link, have you seen any cool things, or what are the things you want to see the most with Resonite Link? Or what are things that you want to do with Resonite Link? Or have you seen any cool stuff that you like?
I could bring in my picture.
Yeah, you can bring a picture and talk about it a bit.
Bring my picture in. Where did I put it? Where's my picture? Where did I put my picture? Where's my picture? Where is it? Did I save it to my inventory? I swear I did.
You can copy it.
Oh,
I can maybe grab it from this. Oh, I got it. There we go.
I got it. Yeah, so I was using Resonite Link in Gary's mod, and where's the camera? There it is. I was using Resonite Link in Gary's mod, and I managed to. There's a function over there that lets you query what the global illumination looks like at a particular point in the map. So I just because I wanted to just test the image sending over to Resonite. I just in Gary's mod. I just wrote a little Lua script to sample a 2D grid of the lighting data. So this is just a slice of the map. It's not an actual light map. And cool, I sampled the data directly. I stored it in a table, and I just I sent the WebSocket message for the texture to send it directly over the WebSocket with just raw bytes, and it gave me back a picture URL, and I pasted that in game, and it worked.
Gary's mod Resonite SDK 1.
Yeah, man. I mean, it could be possible.
Will you be actually showing that video with the physics thing?
Yeah, I can bring it in.
I found that one really cool.
Where did I put it? There it is. Video. In this video, I took a physics object in Gary's mod and I sent its creation over to Resonite, and I'm just continually syncing the position. Resonite Link's really not meant for this. It runs and it looks very smooth, but I would imagine trying to do this with any more than maybe like a few dozen, like over 100 objects would be very, very, very slow.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the most efficient way.
Already with one, it's already kind of hurting a little bit because it is so slow. Why did that import like that? Picture import. Yeah, it does not run very fast. That's half of a millisecond to just do that one thing.
Do you know what's like spending time on? Is it like the JSON serialization?
It's likely the JSON serialization coupled with a lot of memory pressure. It's very, very, very hard to not allocate memory in Lua because all of like the vectors and stuff and whatnot. Like I have to make a new table every time I want to serialize a vector. And making a vector in and of itself is an object on the heap that has to be garbage collected.
Yeah.
So it's quite, you have to get very crafty with making it run fast. And that's not even Lua, that's expression 2, which is written on top of Lua.
So it is very cool just like seeing like, you know, something coming from Gary's mod.
Yeah, you can probably get it to go a lot faster in normal Lua. Yeah, this is literally just me giving into the demons and seeing if I could do it, and I did.
And it's also like one of the things like we generally like there's not like it's not designed, you know, for like synchronizing a real time, you know, lots of real time objects. The goal is like, you know, as much ease of implementation to sort of like bring data in, but you can do it if you want to. It's made like, you know, so you can play with things like that. It's just not particularly optimized for that, but like have fun like this because stuff like this is fun.
Yeah, if you can find a way to like, it's one thing with like, you know, ref hacking or whatever because we tell you not to do that, but like if you find a creative way that we didn't think of to use the engine, or maybe use it in a way that we didn't think it was optimized for, but it actually works really well for, then go for it. Surprise us.
Let's read some comments. Gray Froox asking, in Gary's mod, yes.
Yes, Gary's mod.
That's one of the cool things is, you know, with like Resonite link is you can like pretty much the goal of the library is like you can link it to almost anything because JSON and WebSockets are like very widely supported.
Actually, the only reason I was able to do the texture upload into Gary's mod was because literally the WebSocket module for Gary's mod, the module for it had a beta version that came out literally in November of last year that added binary message support. So I was like, oh my god, I'm saved. And it works.
Yay. I saw Nadia showering. How's that physics to Resonite? Just put the physics objects in Gmod. You can do that now.
Yeah. And you can make the objects clean themselves up. That's what I did with like the a further revision on it is I made it clean itself up.
So Alex2PI is like, I don't have anyone to play Gmod with. I have two answers to that.
That's because we're all playing Resonite.
It's just synchronize Gmod to Resonite and then play Resonite, and you can be playing Gmod with others through Resonite.
Yeah. It's great.
Oh my god. You F98A is asking, one thing I noticed about the Resonite link setting material on Measure, it doesn't seem to work. I've seen like a report on that one, but I haven't been able to replicate it yet.
Are you sure
Actually,
you're actually setting the data right? Because like I've been able to set references and stuff correctly
yeah,
just fine.
I haven't been able to like look into the depth for that one, but like it seems like it works for other people, so it might be just something. I don't know what yet.
Yeah.
We might need like a good application case or something. So
Yeah,
computer users asking. It would be really fun if someone manages to use Resonite Link to play Resonite from Doom as opposed to playing Doom in Resonite. Yes, please do that. How about
Want to make a little. Go ahead.
how about Hightail? So it's like very modable.
Yeah, I guess so. If you could get a
Flick those
WebSocket
two.
in it, yeah.
Yeah, like have fun with it. There's a lot of options. Have you seen like any stuff like with the meshes and audio?
I know somebody is. I think someone was excited about the audio thing for some reason. I don't remember why. Yeah, Fui. I don't remember why.
They work with a lot of audio stuff.
Yeah. I guess that's like I haven't seen anybody do stuff with it. The only thing I've seen people use with the assets is like my own thing that I did, and I haven't seen anybody else use it yet.
There's also like you, and if I think some other people discover having similar issue, maybe just something obvious that make me think about it. There's exact messages I was sending in the GitHub issue for when you get time. And there's the thing, I did like look at it briefly, but like the messages they seemed like I have to like look at it more, but when I just tried to do a quick replication of it, like they didn't seem to be actual JSON because they were like using different symbols for things, and like some of them like were missing. Like because it was like referencing some objects that were created in messages that like they were not included, but I might have missed something. I haven't like really had time to like look at it fully. But this is just kind of like what I ran into like when I was like skimming through stuff. Froox asking, I wonder if we could make video portal between Gmod and Resonite. In a world, Gmod players could see their physics objects in Reso. Can you bring videos to Gmod like that, like video streams?
Yeah, there's you can actually watch videos in Gmod that are synced with each other.
Okay. So you could potentially do that.
That was actually a feature when I was like 14 years old already.
Oh, okay, it's been there a while.
Yeah, it's been there a while. It's probably a lot better now. It used to kind of suck back in the day.
Yeah.
You kind of take synced videos for granted after playing Resonite.
Alex CPI is asking, some time ago I saw that importing MyCurve maps has been updated in updates, but somehow I couldn't get it to work on Linux. I don't think it's going to work on Linux, unfortunately. We use a tool called Mineways that like does the exporting. I don't actually know if Mineways does support Linux. If it supports Linux, we might be able to get it to work, but it will probably not work out of the box.
Worst case scenario, you have to like replace the exe with like a script that launches it in Wine or something.
Minimal version. Yeah, I don't. Oh wait, they do have like Linux stuff. They do have like for Mac. Looks like you might need to build it for Linux, maybe. Linux. There's like, oh no, it just says for Linux, download the Windows version and use Wine to emulate Windows. We might actually proxy that through. We might proxy that through the Bootstrapper then to launch it, because like the main process it runs like outside of Wine, so like if it tries to launch it, it's probably not gonna work. But we might. I would make a GitHub issue about it.
I mean the main process. So the main .NET process launches. So I run the Bootstrapper, which launches the native .NET process, and then I believe the native .NET process launches the renderer.
No.
Oh, it doesn't.
No, it's the
Or did I
bootstrapper
change
does
that?
it.
I can't remember.
It's the bootstrapper.
Oh,
Because the
yeah,
main
I
process
remember.
is running outside of Wine, so if it tries to launch
I
something,
remember.
it's not gonna run under Wine. That's why we have
I
to process through
remember
the
now.
bootstrapper.
I remember now.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons why the
Oh,
bootstrapper even exists is like, so it's like,
yeah.
yeah, I would say make a GitHub issue and like we can potentially like look into that. I've been kind of playing with
Sorry,
like, I've been playing with like Linux myself, so like maybe it could be like fun to get it to work. No
I
promises, but
I blocked the whole bootstrapper how to actually start Resonate on Linux ordeal out of my mind, out of trauma.
It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Like just we add like another mechanism, the bootstrapper to like launch another process because I want me to do it for other things too, and it would launch them under like under Wine, and then it should work. So either way, make a GitHub issue so it's like reported. Like otherwise, like we will forget. And like no promises, we might not like have time for this one, but like without a GitHub issue, it's like 100% not getting fixed.
Yeah. I would say with like we got 5 minutes left. I'd say we're probably
4 minutes.
cut questions at this point.
If people have quick questions, or if they have like quick comments on the Resonite link and it kind of cool stuff like you would want to see, like
just
feel free to share.
Don't ask your long ass questions now, like we've gotten in the past. It's like, can you explain the philosophy behind Resonite in excruciating detail, please?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why. Sorry.
I mean, Jacob is asking, the main confusing thing in C# JSON derived models, that attribute is added to base class, not actual derived model class. It's like backwards. I don't know, like, I mean, it doesn't, like, this shouldn't affect, like, your implementations, like, because that's a very C# thing, but also, like, for C# it makes sense, because when it's deserializing, it sees the base class, like, that's the only thing it knows, so it needs to, like, know to look it up. You could potentially have implementation where, like, it searches everything, but it's going to be very inefficient because, like, the derived classes can come from additional assemblies and maybe, like, they're loaded dynamically. So it also could potentially lead to, like, issues where something could, like, try to introduce, like, another derived class that, like, the original implementation doesn't account for, and now stuff explodes. So it kind of needs to say, okay, this type of message, can have these subtypes and sort of, like, define them so the implementation knows ahead of time, like, all the types that will exist. But, like, that shouldn't, like, that's like a C# implementation detail, so, like, you don't need to follow that for, like, if Python does it on the derived classes, use that. Like, it should work the same. The main part is, like, you need to initialize the right type based on the type property, but where you put, like, how you do that, like, that's specific to your language.
Yeah, like the way I've been doing it is I literally just check the $ type of the message, and depending on the $ type, that's how I handle the logic. That's literally it.
Yeah.
That's all I've been doing. I don't really see why this is.
It does also help because, like, like, if you look at that class, all the types, that it will have. So, like, you don't need to go, like, hunting through the code base for all of them.
Yeah, I guess I really am just not grasping what is making this so confusing.
I guess like I do feel like this way is, like, kind of better because, like, it's just you have it in one place, what is what types are being derived. But yeah, now we only have like 1 minute left, so we're gonna, like, exit it here. So thank everyone for joining for the stream. Hope, like, everyone had, like, really, like, you had, like, good year, good New Year's, and this year's gonna be good. Should be, like, pretty, like, good now, like, so there should be, like, another one next Sunday. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, everyone who's, like, supporting Resonite. Whether it's, like, just by playing the platform, making cool things, or, like, supporting us, like, through Patreon or Stripe. If you're still on Patreon, we strongly, like, recommend switching to Stripe. we're gonna get about 10% more from the same amount of money, so that kind of helps us a lot. The more people switch. But either way, thank you for supporting us. Thank you also for everyone, subscribing on Twitch. That helps a lot as well. And I guess we'll see you next Sunday. Or there's also other office hours, so you can check out us as well. So let's see if we also have anybody to raid, because we do like to raid people from the community.
Just to quickly answer Seventh Void's question, yes, you feasibly could do that if you made a script for it.
Just wanted to squeeze that last one in. Person streaming right now is Creator Jam, so we're gonna send it over to Creator Jam. Which they're also, by the way, they're gonna be starting MMC again. You might have already seen some people with the MMC sponsor badge. Come on. Twitch is not being cooperative. There we go. So I'm actually kind of excited, what we'll, if we'll see, cool stuff, with the Resonite link. Okay. There we go. Alright, it's getting ready. So thank you again very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye guys, see ya.
And gonna stop the recording and stream.